So I'm sharing my strong welcome to everybody, and I'm very happy again as a trainer and as a mentor to be here with you today because we have another interesting work shared by one of our coaches here, Jill Walker from Thailand. You're going to work on on the book that you have read for your certification, for your level 3 certification. And you have chosen a challenging but great book on what does it mean to coach the client, the person. So we're very happy to hear what you want to share with us today.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, everybody. As Christina said, I'm going to be presenting on Coach the Person, Not the Problem by Marcia Reynolds, and talk a little bit about the impact that this book has had on me as a coach and also through this level 3 coaching journey. So this book came out in 2020, which also was the same year that I finished my level 2 certificate and gained my ACC credential. I did not read the book at the time, but the title of this book, Coach the Person, Not the Problem, has been sort of a mantra for me throughout my coaching practice over the last few years. And whenever I found myself in a coaching session and I'd catch myself kind of really focusing in on maybe asking some specific questions, some clarifying questions to the clients, trying to understand their problem, their situation, their story, I'd remind myself in my mind to coach the person, not the problem. And this mantra really helps me to take a step back and focus away from the problem, the story of the client, and take a wider view to kind of focus in on the client, the person, their values, what they want, their greatness, what they want both in life and in the session. And so it was really a powerful mantra for me. But it wasn't until last year, 2024, when I started this level 3 program, that I read the book for this program. And it surprised me. I knew going into it that it was going to be sort of that idea of focusing on the client as a person rather than their stories. And it is a great guide to kind of that reflective inquiry and really great tools and tips on that. But what I really took away from it, which has been a big part of my experience so far, is the focus on deepening presence as a coach. And so this is a quote from the book. Mastery is the deepening of presence, not the perfection of skills. And I would say that this quote really embraces this level 3 MCC journey for me. Because I feel like that, initially when I started coaching years back, I was really focused on gaining the skills. So what is this process of coaching? What is the structure? How do you ask open-ended questions? And really skill-based. Whereas this journey for me in level 3 has really been focusing on who I am as a coach and how I can be more deeply present for the client. And so I wanted to start with this little exercise. So this is an exercise from the book that Marcia uses to really align your brain and set the intention for a coaching session. So the idea is that you choose 1 or 2 feelings that you want to feel and embrace in that coaching session. And it allowing us to kind of choose how we want to feel, to let whatever we need to behind and choose how we're going to be in the session. So I was going to ask you, I'm going into this book presentation and in this class today, welcome you to choose 1 or 2 things that you want to feel, setting the intention for yourself. So you can take a moment to think about it, and then I welcome you to either unmute or add something in the chat box. And I don't even know if I can see the chat box here.
Well, I'm going to help you.
Oh, I can see it.
Yeah, we have Eileen, curious and excited, and we would like to have the participation of everybody because, as you know, we're here to participate actively also with your voice, and we would really like to have your faces also present here. Curious, open to learning, joyful, and open and mindful to learning.
Mm,
And
mindful.
I would add humble
Mm,
to receive.
thank you. Thank you, everybody, for sharing. And I will be going into this presentation today with a feeling of gratitude. So I'm grateful to be able to share my story, my experience, and also grateful for you for being here, for showing up, for being present, and for anything that you have to offer throughout this. So whatever I can receive from you in terms of your thoughts or just your nods or smiles along the way as well. So, as I went through this book and as I've gone through this level 3 program, it's really allowed me and also forced me to put a spotlight on myself and particularly all the things that are happening in my brain in a coaching session. And as I've paid attention, I started to realize when I was coaching how much was really going on in my brain in those moments. And I'd realize that sometimes, the client would offer something and I'd formulate this question in my brain and the client would keep talking and I'd stay attached to that question because I was saving it up and until they stopped talking. So I realized that in doing this, in trying to understand, there was so much going on in my brain that I wasn't being fully present for the client. And in the book, Marcia says that this is coaching from cognitive awareness. So a lot of us do this in the beginning. We really coach from our brain. But as you can see from the slide, this slide is very messy. There's a lot going on in there. And that's what my brain can sometimes look like as well. When we're trying to understand, diagnose, collect data, look for options, solutions, consequences. There's so much going on that we're not fully present. We're not really there for the client in full. And I like this little artwork of this brain with the magnifying glass because I feel like I can be like that sometime, kind of looking for the clues. And as I went through this, I realized, the client is not hiring me as Detective Jill. They're hiring me as Coach Jill. And so some of this learning is stepping away from this and letting go of this place that I very much like to be in my brain because it's comfortable and secure, but being able to let go of that. And one of the other things that it focuses on in the book is not just using our brain. So I'm talking a lot about what's going on in my head, that brain. But it also encourages us to think about our other brains as well. So we have these three centers of intelligence, our heart, that brain of feeling and emotion. And then our gut, which is where that instinct and intuition lives. And we can think of this as our body, heart, and mind, our thinking, feeling, doing centers. There's different ways to look at it. And I know for me, from my story, I lean heavily on my brain. I like thinking it's easy for me. It's a place that I like to be. But it means that I sometimes kind of can ignore my heart and my gut. And so part of this process is also opening myself to all of these brains as well. So I wanted to put it out there as a question for you all, because I'm curious as to where you lean on. And if you notice that when you make decisions in life or when you're coaching, if you have a tendency to do that more from your brain, your heart, your gut, if you lean on one of them more heavily, if there's one that you neglect. So I'll just open it up if anybody has any thoughts or anything that they would like to share in terms of this.
But Eileen is sharing something in the chat. You can also open your microphone, and it would be nice to hear your voice, as I said, all your voices.
I think, Jill, I really resonated with what you said about sometimes holding on too much to a question, and then the client keeps talking, and you're still thinking about that question. So I definitely think I relate to that, and I also lead with the brain. Sometimes I should kind of put it back a little bit and just kind of open my mind a bit more.
Thank you, Eileen.
Hi, Jill. I think I'm similar in that way. where it's my brain that's mostly working. But I know over the past few years, I've been leaning towards being a lot more intuitive, paying
Mm,
attention to what my emotions are telling me, what my gut is telling me. And I've noticed when I lean into that more than my brain, not more than, but in moments, there are moments where leaning into that is more beneficial than
mm.
focusing primarily on my brain. So I've seen the benefit in shifting, and sometimes just responding intuitively, even though my brain hasn't caught up yet.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. So in the book, she talks about opening the centers of our nervous system. So really opening, not shutting down, but opening, those three brains, opening our heart, our mind, our gut. And the suggested ways to do this is opening our brain through curiosity, opening our heart through compassion, and then opening our gut with courage. And I really love this because I love these three words. I love the power behind them. And I love it as a way to kind of approach coaching, and even kind of embracing these going into a coaching session can be really powerful. And when we open all those brains, when we're not shutting them down, but opening them, and we are fully present, then we are ready to receive, receiving whatever the client has to offer, whatever they need to express, whatever unfolds in the session. And once we create that space, that open space, then it really creates room for that psychological safety as well for the client and ourselves. Okay, so when I first put an image in here, it was a different image. I had originally used an image from the movie The Substance that just came out last year with Demi Moore. I don't know if anybody saw it. It won a lot of awards, but it's considered body horror, which I didn't even know was a genre. But the visual was quite gory, so I actually backed off at the last minute because I thought maybe it's too much, maybe it's too scary. So I replaced it with this one, which is still a little bit uncomfortable, but it really represents, when I think of those horror movies, it represents that visceral feeling I get when I read this quote from the book, which is, allow clients to get under your skin. And for me, that felt like really uncomfortable. And so I thought about it some more and like, why does that feel uncomfortable? And I think there's something in the receiving, letting go of the thinking mind, letting go of the trying to understand and the knowing, and just allowing this space where uncomfortable things can live. So there might be that discomfort of the silence in the session, the emotions of the session, the not knowing in the session that can initially feel really uncomfortable for me. But the challenge for me is to first just allow, sometimes it's okay to be uncomfortable, let that discomfort kind of pass through me. And then over time, I think it becomes less uncomfortable as I get used to it as well. There's also this quote from the book: attention consists of suspending our thought, leaving it detached, empty, and ready to be penetrated, waiting, not seeking anything, but ready to receive. And I thought this was such a beautiful quote, but also an uncomfortable quote, because when you lead with your thinking mind, this is the complete opposite. This is saying empty your brain and just allow what happens to happen. Kind of let go of that control and that security that my mind can provide. And I also realized going through this that one of the things when I coach from my brain and ask questions to help me understand, or when I'm kind of acknowledging the client with a yeah, wow, wonderful, all these things, all these impulses are fulfilling a need in myself. And so one of the things is for me, learning to let go of those needs, not forever, but in the coaching session, being able to leave my needs behind so that I can be fully present for the client. My needs have no place in my coaching session. I'm there completely for the client in those moments. And what that requires for me is being able to make sure that I am able to see to my needs outside of the session, which means managing our inner space. That can be before the session, all the time around the session, sometimes even in the session. If I notice a thought coming in, or I notice myself shifting into that, trying to understand, noticing that and learning to let it go. So I wanted to also open it up to all of you about your, tips and tricks about managing your inner space. What are the non-negotiables, or what are the things that really work for you? Or any other thoughts to share about how you manage your inner space?
What comes to your mind and what comes to your heart and what comes to your gut to share here in this community of coaches, because we're co-creating this work together. So consciously breathing helps me. That's what Sebastian Vincent is writing in the chat. Releasing expectations. It's very challenging, almost impossible, because our brain is working for that. So how do you do that? It's interesting to use this space with Jill to share.
Jill, I hope you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yes. The word that sort of comes to mind, which in some ways is far away from mindfulness and presence, is actually planning, because it's so easy to schedule in coaching sessions just either too close to other things, or at times when you've just got too much on. So for me, it's really important that I create that structure around my coaching to make sure that when I do have a coaching session, I've got time before and time after to get myself into that right space and put everything else aside. So for me, that's very important.
Yeah, thank you, Lucy.
Just want to add my perspective as a coach. I have learned not to manage, but to listen to expectations, listening to what is going on. So my way of dealing with my inner space is to listen, to be able to listen. Once I notice that this works for myself, once I listen to what is going on, these things are seen and they just pass in a way.
Yeah, thank you. I love all of these suggestions. Breathing, letting go of expectations, managing the schedule. So in the book, she also provides some steps to aligning our brain to allow us to be fully present before a session. And again, she starts with choosing the feeling. So we did that in the beginning, where we were intentional about choosing one or two feelings. The second is recalling the intention. So recalling our intention for that session, whatever that might be for us. And then 3 is really believing in the greatness of the client. So I love these because they're simple: choose, recall, believe. And then finally, there were so many kind of tips and tricks in the book, and it's, you can't take them and use them all. So I kind of pick and chose some of the ones that really resonated with me, and then add some of my others to kind of create these 5 steps of my own. And this is a work in progress. So if you ask me in a few weeks, it'll probably be completely different ones. But while I was working through this presentation particularly, these are the steps that came to mind. So one was being quiet, both inside and out. And then imagining myself as an empty vase. So there's this beautiful empty vase over here. It's still very, it's present, it's solid, it's there, but it's open. It's ready to receive whatever comes into the session. I was also thinking maybe it'd be nice if it had some holes in it to allow kind of air and light to pass through. Then 3, letting go of trying to understand. This is a key reminder for me. And then listening with all my brain. So not just listening with my mind brain, but also listening with my heart and my gut and allowing those to have space. And then trusting myself, trusting the client, trusting the process is always a constant reminder. And yes, so to end, I just want to express that gratitude again for all of you. And thank you all for just listening to the story, listening to how the book impacted me on my journey. And then I can pass it, Christina, or anyone else, if you've got any questions or comments.
Thank you, Jill, for being also succinct and focused, sharp in your presentation. And well, I always offer this question to those who are presenting their works here. What was the gift or the benefits that you received while you were working on this activity?
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's the process of like bringing awareness to something, and then knowing that once I bring awareness to it, it's only a matter of time where if I want to let go of that thing, that it will happen. It will happen with time. So it's like bringing awareness to something is sometimes enough. And then not forcing it, letting it happen. So like with the thoughts over time, I can kind of notice them and let them pass and have more presence and more space. But it's a process.
Yeah, the process, and we go through the process together. So thank you for allowing this process to unfold. I will stop this recording now. We move on a little bit with some comments, and then today we will have another presentation of Luce's coaching model. So we will record that too.